So looking at the elemental reflection of cycle 8, in many ways, I'm not sure that there's a lot to talk about. We've come to a place where the element itself, we've moved through all of the physical elements, the earth, air, fire, water. We've been in that transitional of ether, the air that is, you know, breathed by the gods. We've moved through like these higher emanations of light and thought, consciousness, and coming to a place where the element is energy itself. It is, the basic building blocks. I think when we were talking about the element of ether, we talked about um, the ancient Greeks who were all always seeking amongst other things of how to, what is the basic building block of existence of the world itself. And, some said that it was fire, some said that it was earth. There was the concept of the atom itself came out of that discovery that underneath even the elements that we work with, there is something even more basic, which is the atom, and that all substance is made of atoms, and which is phenomenal when you think that they did not have the tools to be able to do experiments to see where that, how that panned out. But that science supported that, of recognizing that matter is built up of these smaller units, the atomic component of all different materials and substances in the earth. It's probably the government sending me a message. After that, I don't know if you heard that bing of my phone. But there is, in the explorations of quantum physics, of recognizing this, where science, the solid practical foundation of science starts to get very, very weird, that and actually harkens back to what was that spiritual science of alchemy, um that in truth there is just one thing, there is just one substance. Even atoms, you break them down on a deeper level, and in truth there's this space between the atoms, that is just this field, this morphic field that is holding all of these different components. And so what is this, there's a, I don't want to get into the weeds of the science, mainly because I haven't brushed up on all the terminology of it. So I don't want to start to reflect things that are not, wholly accurate. However, was it the boson Higgs, the God particle, that, what is it that holds the framework of all of existence? And the alchemists, or in Hermetic principles, um, those two, of course, being complementary and informing each other, would say that there it is just the all, and we are all made up of that. Um, when what everything that we see, everything that we experience out in the world and within ourselves, has already been stepped down into something which is more physicalized. But when you bring it up to the highest potential vibration that it is just one thing. So from that, and again, it's impossible to access. I think it's impossible for us to be able to pierce and fathom. I feel it very similarly, in truth, I talk sometimes about, the collective superconscious that in reflection to what Jung presented as the collective unconscious, and that they are reflective concepts that, so stay with me. I feel like there's like, sorry, I thought we were on a road. Where are we now? So, we are each individual beings having our own experiences, and we are being filled with all sorts of different life experiences, but when and that all of that lives in our personal unconscious, but when you drop down below that into the collective unconscious, the place of the archetypes, these experiences that we have are not really all that different from each other. We will all be born. We will all experience relationship. We will all die. We will all experience pain. We will all love. We will all anger. Those are archetypal energies. The way that it shows up for each of us is going to be very different, but the fact that it shows up is universal. And I see the collective superconscious as being the same principle. There seems to be something innate in us. We must believe in something. We must feel that life has meaning. What it is that we believe in and what it is that gives shape to the meaning of our lives is going to be different. But that is a super conscious, a collective super conscious thing. So belief in something, God, is universal. What that looks like is very different. And unfortunately, on so many fronts, it is the attachment to the personal reflection that tends to create so many problems. Of not recognizing that this is an arc. There is just one. It's just one. There is existence. There is human experience. There is a sense of connection to something greater than ourselves. What that looks like, innumerable forms, innumerable forms. But the all of it just is. So that would be the elemental perspective. There is just the all. There is just energy. And that's it. But we live in a material realm. We are here having a human experience. That whole, we're not human beings learning to be spiritual, or spiritual beings having a human experience. What does that look like? So, how is it that we work with energy? And and how is it that we come into balance, out of balance, in balance with energy? Um, what is energy healing even? So this is where we come to the active reflection. So, um, energy heal. I mean, I'm sure many of you have, if not experienced energy healing, have been trained in energy healing, work in energy healing. There's so many different forms of it. It is just recognizing that, on all of these different aspects of being that we have, energy is one of them. Um, and that when we are working with the energy body, what we are dealing with is this life force itself. So it has many different names: the chi, ki, the ki, pa. Um, Pneuma is like the breath itself. Oregon I thought was very, very interesting. There's William Reich is fascinating. He was a psych psychologist, psychotherapist, who worked with energy healing, although he was ultimately sort of vilified. But he came up with this concept of orgone, and many of you may have come across like orgone healers. That they got little pyramids or little discs. Thought I had one here somewhere. That you place them or wear them, and they have the capacity to balance energy. I tend to love the reflection of this all that Obi-Wan Kenobi describes in Star Wars. The first one, for those of us of a certain age, the one that came out in 1979, or the fourth one of those of us of other ages. Um, but when he's describing it to Luke Skywalker about this force um, that permeates and penetrates all things. It is the force that connects all in the universe, and it is that which you align with, can work with, and or harness for the dark side. But in that film, when uh the Death Star disintegrates a planet, um, Obi-Wan says, I feel a great disturbance in the force. Like when you are tapped in on that energetic level, when things um, shift, um, when there is this great disturbance, then you tap into that as well. You feel that. It's like being plugged into the web of weird. So this is what we are, when we get to this really high vibration perspective, it's about how to tap into that energy and see yourself as in that soup as well. So there have been over, thousands and thousands of years, so many different forms of energy healing. Um, you know, Perhaps the oldest might be the Egyptian energy healing. There's prayers and incantations and recipes for healing recipes that were found on papyrus from thousands of years ago, and in many ways, in truth, the funerary texts, the pyramid texts, the coffin texts, is that what I'm talking about? Oh yeah, which I'm talking about tomorrow um at the College of Psychic Studies, which I'm super 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 excited about. I mean, it's online, but it's through them. um they were also about how to align oneself with moving out of the material and into the non-physical, and then coming back again. But the Ayurveda, um, traditional Chinese medicine, all of those are these huge, very, very in-depth modalities for healing on all levels, but they include the acknowledgement of healing with energy. Um, in the West, we certainly have increasingly, certainly from the 60s on, um, become more and more comfortable with the tradition of the chakras, which comes out of the Hindu tradition, the Vedic texts. And we've been talking about that all the way along the line of these energy centers, these vortexes for these sort of step down uh, generators for working with energy in our bodies. But the more modern, contemporary, 20th century healing modalities and on Probably would start, if we were to look at chronology, start with Reiki, which came out of Japan in the 1920s, with, is it Asui, Masaru Usui. Um, and healing touch, therapeutic touch, polarity therapy was all, perhaps around the 60s and the 70s, pranic healing about that time as well. Pranic healing is perhaps a bit more directly psychological, um, which is absolutely fascinating. Um, so and I should say, healing touch and therapeutic touch, for a time anyways, was implemented in hospitals as a way of being able to, it's not about healing people or balancing energy, but just sort of calming people down, who was, were healing in hospital or undergoing procedures in the hospitals. I think it was therapeutic touch that was developed um, by a couple of nurses. So I mean, energy healing is not, has sort of been part and parcel part of our uh, experience and expression of how to understand ourselves and how to bring ourselves into balance for thousands and thousands of years. And now, you know, what would almost be this energy healing revolution, although it's, the Reiki revolution. There's so many different versions, just even of Reiki. Um, but all of it is about how to work with energy, how to balance energy in in ourselves and bring ourselves into alignment um, in our lives. And I would say on all levels. So when we're looking at uh, wellness, so I'm sort of shifting to a particular energy healing modality, and one which I would say sort of accidentally came into being when I was working with healing in conjunction with the cycle of the seasons. It that was all sort of coming together, falling into place of looking at, a truly holistic, looking at the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the energetic. Um, and uh, and so in truth, when I realized that, oh, this actually is energy healing, this is an energy healing approach. And I was thinking of what to call it. I could have called it I don't know, alchemical Reiki would have been, because it is a form of working with, but but at the time, and maybe I was being persnickety, but at the time, I was very aware that what I was working with was very much rooted in Western tradition. That it was far more transformational than transcendent. This wasn't about going to the top of a monastery at the top of a mountain and being downloaded with symbols for healing. This was about, you know, hands in the earth, working with the cycle of the seasons, um, and sort of pulling that information out of um, this hero or Hera's journey type of approach. So it was very different. So I didn't want to have it connected in that way, and so I looked to, what I understood at the time as being the in the West, anyways. Was arguably the oldest extant language, which is Welsh. And there's a number of different ways of describing energy, but honey, and I like the sound of it. Honey, bringing sweetness to life. So, looking at the intent of energy healing as being another arm that brings us. Oh, I can see this. Is this someone? Oh. Oh, thank you. I just was reading so about the in the chat. So wellness from a holistic perspective, as I said, looking at the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. When we're looking at it from, the physical part, that, how are we taking care of the body emotionally, recognizing the things that keep us out of emotional balance, and how to foster esteem and confidence in ourselves, self-acceptance, self-love, the mental aspect of it, being about, knowing who we are and what we think, and what um what we believe, and the guidance that we have, the programming that we are carried with. Is that something that we have chosen? Do we know what it is, or are we, just sort of following the beliefs that we've been told in our family, in our schools, in our churches, in our society? Like, is this something which is in alignment with me? And then, from a spiritual perspective, who am I? Why am I here? What is my purpose? What brings meaning, is everything that I was saying before. And there has been, very much of a push over the last, number of decades, certainly, of, bringing in these beautiful Eastern traditions, as I said, the energy healing of Reiki, and a Buddhist approach to mindfulness, which we've very much seen, be a part of the healing arts, the uh, you know certainly to foster, uh, mental health, um, looking at, mindfulness as, um, sort of allowing us not to get mired up in in the chaos of emotions that are moving through us. There's, mindfulness was really, implemented a lot in, so CBT is figure out what you think, and DBT is bringing a mindfulness to not getting mired in the emotions, but, this higher perspective, like, oh, wow, you're furious about that. That's interesting. What might be going on there? So, um, both of those are, they've been very helpful and powerful ways of being able to deal with what might bring us out of balance, what might bring us out of a state of wellness. But I've found that it's sometimes, mindfulness can sometimes lead to what is dangerously referred to, and dangerously, a spiritual bypass, that always rising above, sort of always turning the other cheek, always, um, you know, having this distanced observer, can sometimes stop us from being able to drop into, what is it about this that is hard for me, or what is this feeling telling me, or, um, certainly not dealing with the dark and the shadow and the shame. So I see this need to balance this beautiful, uh, approach of mindfulness and transcendence with something which is harder and a bit darker, perhaps heavier, and that is transformation. So I'm not going to get into a huge amount of it, although I do increasingly. It's like, those moments when you feel like, "Oh, I'm on the verge of getting really, really, really obsessed with this." I'm kind of in that place. I love this idea of the cauldron and the singing bowl as both being symbols of change and transformation, but the singing bowl is that Eastern, the transcendence, the symbol of um, of coming back into balance through, mindfulness and transcendence. And I see that in the tarot as being reflected in the hermit. I rise above, I go to the top of the mountain, like Sui did when he was downloaded with Reiki. But the cauldron is different. The cauldron drops us in. That is about being stirred and stirred and stirred, and it's not comfortable. But that brings the transformation and change. And I do believe that having both of those, knowing how to sit in the muck of emotions at the same time as rising above and observing what's happening, those two together, the above and the below, the lower three chakras, the upper three chakras coming together in the heart and the soul star chakra, um, is the most potent um, combination. So this in the tarot, I would see this transformation as being the death card. So we have the hermit and the death. Both of them are bringing us to the same place, but they're coming at it totally differently. So honey is, although it really does encompass all of it, I feel that it's a little bit more focused on the cauldron aspect of it. And I often talk about how the great work is, it's all the ingredients. It's putting all the ingredients out on the countertop, but the noble art is dropping them into the cauldron and stirring through each of the 8 cycles in order to create transmutation. Um, Transcendence plus transformation equals transmutation, where it changes forever. You never go back. So I say this at the beginning of the great work that you know, art is a mirror held up to nature, and that's what it is. Nature out there is your nature. I love this so much. All of these wonderful poetic images of mythology are referring to something in you. When your mind is trapped by the image out there, so that you never make the reference to yourself, you have misread the image. So part of that is looking at this whole, everything we've been talking about for almost a year now. This cycle of the seasons, of looking at, maybe even starting with the winter, the barrenness. There's nothing that's happening out there. And so we are preparing and we're fixing the tools and we're making sure that we have what we need and we're looking through the seed catalog and all of that. We're not doing anything out there yet because nothing would grow out there yet. It's not conducive. But as soon as it can, as soon as it opens up, as soon as the weather, the season shifts, then we can go out there. Then we can do what needs to be done to start to implement what we have been planning in the dark. And we work that, we foster that, we care for that, so that in the summer it although there's a certain aspect of recognizing that, things are gonna happen, the elements are gonna happen, the sun is gonna shine or not, the rain is gonna fall or not, there's a little bit of a variable in there, but for the most part, I do what I can to continue to guide into fruition, and then when things have come to fruition, I acknowledge that. I take the gifts of the fruits of my labors. I leave what doesn't work anymore. I allow myself to be nourished. And I also use what I have worked so hard to prepare for the future, to plan for what will come. And that being out there becomes something which is reflected in here. That I may find myself in a dark night of the soul. I may find myself in a time of barrenness, a time of crisis where I don't know what's going on anymore. The ground under my feet does not feel like something that I know, and to allow myself to be able to just be quiet in that place, to explore what's going on, to maybe, mend the net of my broken heart of, what next, what new, what is needed here, what seed needs to be planted, what new behaviors, right? And when it feels okay, then I can start to implement that. Try just testing it out at first. Let me try to have that conversation. Let me try to establish that boundary. Let me, allow this newfound, power of sadness to, clear the heaviness that's in my head, like whatever it is. But as I work with it, as I hold the space for it, um, more and more, it starts to get solid roots. I start to feel like, maybe I do have a little sense of how I'm navigating this vessel that is the vessel of me in this life. Um, and then coming to fall again of, really harvesting the gifts of all that hard work of recognizing, what needs to be let go. Maybe that's not a path I want to take. Maybe that's a friendship that didn't totally work out, or, maybe whatever it is, it's time um to let go of. Or things that I might want to sort of tuck away. Oh yeah, I think I might want to explore this. I might want to read that book. I might want to travel to that place. I might want to, train in this thing. There might be some seeds in the future that I want to explore. So whatever's happening out there is in here. That is the basis of honey. I won't go through all of specific benefits of a transformational approach, but to just recognize that the same as we're looking at, the winter, the spring, the summer, the fall, we also are looking at the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. There's always this sort of fourfold. But as looking at that pagan approach to the wheel of the year, the eightfold cycle, and I know I've said this many, many times, probably right at the very beginning, that the eightfold wheel of the year is actually two fourfolds that have just been put together, which is a little bit of what happened in this land. Let me see if I have, did I do it? Oh yeah, here we are. Let's do this one first. So we have from the more sort of Northern European Germanic tribes, we have the uh, solstices, the winter solstice and the summer solstice, and we have the equinoxes, the spring equinox and the fall equinox. So the winter solstice, winter, the spring equinox, spring, oh my gosh, I just sound like it's so silly, right? The summer solstice is summer, and the fall equinox. I mean, those are the four seasons, right? But coming out of this land, where I am, coming out of the Celtic tradition, is you have what are the cross quarters. So Samhain, well, Samhain in Ireland, here it's Calan Gaev means the first day of winter. Beltane, the fires of Bel, is the summer. Here it is Calan Hav. Hav means summer. So this is the first, this is end of November, end of October, November is the beginning of winter. The beginning of May is the beginning of summer. So, and then we have Imbolc, in February, which is the beginning of spring, and Lunasa in August, which is the fall. So we have Samhain Yule, 2 winters, Imbokostara, 2 springs, Beltane Litha, 2 summers, Lugnasa Maban, 2 falls. So I say early winter, early spring, late spring, early summer, late summer, early fall, late fall. So all Samhain and Yule is going to be about the dark, but Samhain is really going into it and Yule is really coming out of it. Imbolc and Astara is all about, preparing for what is to come, what is to be planted, what is going to be nurtured. But one of them is the sort of getting the land ready, and the other one is really putting things into the land, right? So they're still holding the same overarching energy, but with a slightly different focus and perspective. And so here, even though we've got Samhain and Yule as being the 2 winters. This is a bit of, you've got to skew it a little bit. What we have is the physical. Once the 2 seasons, which sort of bridge 2 seasons, which once we have come into the world, are really going to be anchored in our emotional selves. So the reflections, the 8 reflections that are just opening us up to experience what it is to be in this experience from a physical perspective, is the elemental and the active reflections. With each of the cycles, and we've been going through this is what we've been doing for a year, but this is the energy because it's just vibrational. So even being in the physical is energy, but it's solid energy, right? It's slow moving energy. So this is my perspective. We're still energy healing when we are doing the things in our bodies which bring us in alignment with the higher vibration energy as well. That's all energy healing, but it's just about bringing the consciousness to it. So we have the elemental and the active being physical, the developmental and psychological, what are the childhood stages of development all the way through to, adulthood and death and beyond, Bardo, which is what we're going to be talking about. And what are these key issues that we're talking about? The roles that we take on, the masks, the defenses, the beliefs, the meaning, the purpose, the how do we heal from from loss, all of these issues that we're working through. These are the emotional reflections. And then what this journey actually looks like, these stages of healing in the alchemical reflection, or these stops that we make in the chakras that are also all archetypal energies as well. And then this spiritual I keep realizing that I disappear because I'm gesticulating so much. You guys get her hands just went. So the guidance, what here in this realm, can I look to for guidance? And the intuitive is more that really high vibrational, what of the gods, the mighty ones, the shining ones, speaking through the oracles, through the tools that connect us with the divine. Can we get that reflection from spirit? So all of these elements contribute to honey. I see it as and of course all of these elements as well. So we're looking at the cycle of the seasons out there, and we're looking at the ways in which I can meet and experience and understand and learn and grow and shift with what is out there as well. And so what that Ooh, okay, hold on. Stop share. I'm gonna pause. Okay. I might just revisit what I just said since I totally forgot to record that whole thing. But I was just saying I posted a little thing yesterday just because it's been a little bit challenging. I thought it was funny. I don't know how many people saw it, but oh my gosh. So there was a post. No, it wasn't even the post. It was the mailman last week. I happened to see his car plug, so I went out there to pick up the mail, and he's like, "Did you see that there was a panther in the neighborhood?" I'm like, Say what?" He's like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Someone spotted a panther." And he looked on his phone and he showed me this post on the UK Daily News, and he of this panther really close up, and then a road and a mailbox behind it. And he's like, "Yeah, that's the mailbox. It's just down the street." I'm like, "Are you telling me that there's a panther in our neighborhood?" And he's like, "Yeah." No. So the other thing is, I say, "That's bad. That is not good." He's like, "Yeah, yeah." And then he drove off. But there's a story. Who is it? There's a story of, is it a boar, a pig? The sow, who travels from South Wales up to North Wales, dropping little piglets as she goes or whatever. And there's like a bundle of wheat somewhere. I don't know, so when I am gonna have to go back and look at the story, but when you look at the story, it's like whatever it is that she's dropping is sort of the agricultural boon of that part of Wales, right? This is how mythology works. But when she gets to the north of Wales, when she gets to the Menai Strait, when she gets almost to Anglesey, she drops a black cat. And this is bad news. So somebody tries to get rid of, and I can't remember the part of the story, but anyways, they try to drown the cat in the Menai Strait. And it's this, oh, right, because it grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. It becomes this monstrous cat. And so now it's said you can't even say the name of this cat. It has a name, you can't say it. Someone tried to say it the other day, and Christopher Hughes just about had a heart attack. He's like, "Do not say the name of that cat." So the fact that there is a big black cat loose on Anglesey, when you tie into the mythology, and at this time, because this is the story of the tailless black sow is the one who runs, and this is her. It's crazy, right? That the Daily News, the UK Daily, it is the he who shall not be named of cats on Anglesey at the mailbox just down the street from where we live. So I thought, well, this is ridiculous. But I've been searching. So I posted about that. And somebody, a friend of mine from Anglesey, said, "Oh, yeah, my sister and I went in search of it." You can go on my post. This was like 2 days ago. She's like, "And we're pretty sure that we saw the cat, but then we got scared and we started, but we heard it." And so people have stories of this cat. Anyways, it's bad news. So I thought it was sort of, interesting that there's this stuff that's been just happening, which is just some difficult times and people are snarling, just whatever. Anyways, I'm like, well, that's interesting because there is a disturbance in the force, and apparently there's a black cat loose on Anglesey. But it's the tension, right? That at this time, that the things that are bubbling are the things that need to be addressed, the things that may need to be shaken up a little bit, the things that need to be transformed, that carrot in the cauldron that's just not cooking. It's just not, you need to. So I don't know why I started with that. Why did I start with that? Anyways, paying attention to the things that are challenging at this time. Now oh, I guess I was talking about the energy. So going back to the share to here. Right. So just each of these cycles as having its own internal integrity of structure. You know, that there is something about each of these that is archetypally aligned. And so knowing that we respond in truth, energetically, spiritually, more powerfully to symbol than to words. I mean, for years I have been teaching what I call the symbolic language of the divine. And this is part of the reason why I've loved working with oracles for so long, because spirit shows up through image, through symbol. And so these symbols that I work with, and I often talk about the fact, I would sit with Yule. I would breathe red. I would sit with the energy of Yule. I would feel all of what connects the earth and the breath and the infant and, calcination and the root and all of that. And then ask for the symbol. What is it that speaks of that? And there were so many times in these, I'm like, really? That simple? Like, can it not be something like really like nuanced and uh I don't know, like sort of like beautiful. I was like, these just feel so simple, but there's the power in the simplicity, that this little coil, it it brings to mind so many things. It brings to mind the energy that is coiled in the earth ready to spring forth. It brings to mind the snake, the kundala, which is coiled around the root chakra. The spiral, which appears on so many carved on Neolithic sites and stuff, that just because they're simple doesn't mean um, that they are simple, right? There's a complexity in the simplicity. And I was teaching this one year, many years ago, because it was pre-COVID. I was in a classroom with a whiteboard and I was making these notations, and all of a sudden, oh yeah, here they are. Here they are. So we've got the solid honey of grounding, the loving honey of ebb and flow, the centering honey of esteem, which is that seed of the self, and then the bridging honey of synthesis, which is two seeds of the self coming together. This I've closed up here so that it actually looks more like a megaphone. This was the first iteration of it. That clear honey of expression, and then the illumined honey of vision, which is the past, future, and then reaching out. That emanation from the third eye. But then bringing the transcendent aspect to it, which brings the enlightened honey of karma, that fifth element, and then the three-dimensional diamond, which is eight-sided. It's the three-dimensional seed. It's the honey of esteem that I am now sitting in myself, like the womb, the egg, the cosmic egg itself. But all of these became this. This to me, this is where it gets bizarre. I'm sorry, but I'm like, oh my God, it's the RCA dog. It's Nipper. So this is, I feel, to me, this is honey. This is the energy of me in all those forms that is connecting with. So my human self, my spirit self, it's all one. So here we look at these honey symbols here, this honey of grounding. Like each of these are the experiences, these actual experiences that I've had, like the albums. What am I going to focus on? What am I going to play? And what it's being played on is the seed of the self. The record player is this vessel, and it contains all of these, the potential to play all of these albums. The thing that brings forth the story that we're playing is that needle of cycle 2. It's the emotions. The emotions are the thing that bring the song forward. And this intersection between what is on the album and what is starting to be put out into the world is that translator, right? It's that cycle 4. It's the needle itself, which is going to bring it to what becomes amplified for outer sharing. So up until, and it's the same with the elements as well, that up until cycle 5, everything is kind of physicalized. We have the albums, we have the this expression, the translator from the record onto the record itself, the vehicle for expression, the needle that's going to bring forth the um, the expression, the amplifier out into the world. That's like the earth and the water and the air and the fire, and the fifth element being the ether. That when you have 4 in balance, you create ether, this fifth element, but then it goes out into the world. The tail is cycle 6. It is this vision that is being put out there into the world. And then there is the receiver of cycle 7. What is the energy that I put out there? How does that, these emanations, this purpose and higher purpose and global higher purpose, I don't even know where my story is going to. I just know it's out there. And then just the whole thing itself. Cycle 8. This honey of unity is all of this. It is me, it is my story, it's the expression of my story, it's the sending of my story, it's the emanation of my story, it's all of it. So this is making it a little simpler. The root, going into how I integrate that and translate that into something that I'm putting out into the world, and then how it's going out into the world. So I think, oh, yes, coming back to the cycle of the seasons, change isn't just one thing, just one time, just one big revelation. Change occurs in stages and phases, which each add depth, color, character, and create a multidimensional, multifaceted you. And so that is moving from this to this. is moving from three-dimensionality to multidimensionality. And we do that by going through this process again and again and again and again. So the reason why I have the background that I have is because I tend to, for myself, I see the flower of life. Can you see that? The flower of life. For me is the symbol of honey because it circles upon circles upon circles upon circles. It's all of these circles, all of these cycles again and again and again just create such a beautiful pattern that is um, that reflection of it's the flower of life itself. Right? So I'm going to end the recording there with that such a huge gallop through um, the active reflection of cycle 8.